Good evening, and first tonight, the head of the child sex abuse inquiry has accused workers at a notorious Nottingham children's home of blaming the victim. Alexis J was responding to evidence from a former boss at Beechwood in Mapley.
Well, today, Ken Rigby told the inquiry his staff thought that the children's home was a dumping ground for disruptive youngsters. But Professor J said their attitude was a major part of the problem. Well, here's our social affairs correspondent, Jeremy Bull.
Today, the child abuse inquiry turned its focus to the home at the beating heart of this scandal, Beechwood, where so many residents say they were victims. Giving evidence from Australia on a video link, Beechwood's former administrator, Ken Rigby, was a boss there for 18 long years. Today, he accepted that it was very difficult for children to report being abused. Mr Rigby said he did hear rumours, but they weren't formal complaints. His staff included Andris Logins, who's now serving a 20-year jail sentence. Today, Mr Rigby said he now takes responsibility for what happened to Logins' victims.
I'm still finding it hard to accept that this happened, that Logins was able to do what he did and nobody saw it. He isn't an evil man, but that there are members of staff who were working at that time I would have trusted my own children with.
And from survivors, there was a shocked reaction when Mr Rigby described devious, promiscuous children at Beechwood, and he said staff were vulnerable because of false allegations. He caught one worker called John Dent with his arm around two teenage girls. His response was to give advice, not to send mixed messages. But we heard Dent was eventually jailed for abusing 4 girls in his care, and it all prompted this response.
Mr Rigby, would you accept that a major part of the problem may have been the attitudes held by staff to the children in their care? Beechwood was regarded as a dumping ground. They lacked understanding, even sympathy for the terrible backgrounds and childhood experiences that many of the residents had, that they were riven by value judgments about them and effectively blamed the victim.
And this afternoon we heard from a former trainee social worker who was put in charge of a children's home before he was even qualified. He worked at Beechwood for 2 years, a period when 20 children there came forward as victims.
I'm very shocked, and I do not understand why that was not picked up, quite honestly. I thought I worked within quite a close staff team who sort of supported each other and supported the young people there. And I'm quite horrified that that would be the case.
And a similar response from James Fennick, who ran Beechwood for 10 years. Here's his reaction after being told that 35 complaints of child sex abuse relate to his time in charge.
I'm absolutely shocked.
Do you have any reflections as to how that might have come about and remained undiscovered?
I've no idea.
When was it that you first learnt that there were that number of allegations of sexual abuse?
I had no idea until you just told me that those numbers reflected my 10 years.
Tonight, the national inquiry is packing up at Trent Bridge. It's going to resume in London after taking a week's break. It'll start looking at responses more recently and at Nottinghamshire's current police and council bosses and how they'll have to explain themselves.
OK, Jeremy, thank you very much.